Hi everyone. Today we'll continue to explore Spinoza's philosophy. In this episode, we'll focus on Spinoza's principle of Conatus. We'll try to understand Spinoza's thoughts on the mind and body using his fundamental ideas. The relationship between the mind and body holds a very important place in Spinoza's thought. We saw earlier that Spinoza brought new solutions to Descartes' philosophical problems and that he opposed his mind-body distinction. Unlike Descartes, according to Spinoza, the mind and body are not two separate things. According to him, the mind and body are reflections of two different attributes of God, who is the one and absolute being. These attributes are the attributes of extension and thought. So the mind and body come from the same source and cannot be separated from each other. Just like two sides of a coin, the mind and body are two different expressions of the same reality. God is a being who can both think and occupy space. When Spinoza thinks of God with the attribute of occupying space, he expresses him as body. When he considers God with the attribute of thinking, he defines him as idea. So the matter of something and the thought of it are actually two different ways of looking at the same thing. According to Spinoza, when we think of a table, this table is an expression of God's attribute of extension. The image of the same table in our mind is a reflection of God's attribute of thought. So both the table and the image of the table in our mind come from God. According to Spinoza, there is also an idea of everything that exists in God and comes from his nature. So if there is a body, there is also an idea of it, and vice versa. But while everybody exists according to God's attribute of extension, every idea exists according to God's attribute of thought. For example, the reason for the existence of the table in front of us is God's attribute of extension. The reason for the idea of this table is God's attribute of thought. So while material things exist according to the reasons within themselves, thoughts also exist according to the reasons within themselves. They do not affect each other. Therefore, no body can cause an idea and no idea can affect a body. Bodies and ideas are independent of each other. Now let's look at Spinoza's principle of Conatus and his theory of emotions. According to Spinoza, everything that exists in nature exists by a necessity that comes from God, but everything also exists individually. That is, everything is both a part of God and an individual that exists on its own. This individuality does not mean that things are completely independent of external influences. On the contrary, everything is in interaction with other things. They influence each other and determine each other's ways of existence. Even the non-existence of something, like its existence, depends on external factors. That is, something can only be destroyed by an external factor. According to Spinoza, the reason why something cannot destroy itself is that there is nothing in its nature that would prevent its existence. The definition of something tells us the nature of that thing. For example, when we define a triangle, this definition tells us how the triangle exists and what it is. There is nothing in the nature of a triangle that would destroy it. The same is true of all things in nature. Nothing can destroy itself, but everything is constantly confronted with external influences. Therefore, everything tries to resist external influences in order to maintain its existence. But nothing can exist forever because there is nothing in nature that has infinite power. It is inevitable that everything will one day disappear. Spinoza calls the effort of things to preserve their existence Conatus. Conatus is a fundamental characteristic of all beings, including humans. Conatus is also a power to act. So a person's effort to protect himself is also his effort to survive and fulfill himself. Human activity is a measure of this power to act. According to Spinoza, human emotional life is also connected to the changes in this Conatus. Increases in Conatus create joy in humans, while decreases create sadness. So a person feels joy when his power to act increases and sadness when it decreases. Emotions like love, liking, sympathy are associated with joy. Emotions like hatred, disgust, antipathy are associated with sadness. According to Spinoza, a person not only protects himself but also tries to protect the things he loves, because the things he loves increase his Conatus. In the same way, a person tries to avoid things that hinder his Conatus, because these things sadden him.